Oblivion Remastered's success is a sad sign of where video games are right now. Gamers are also nostalgic creatures, and we tend to hold our earliest gaming memories very close to our hearts. We'll convince ourselves that, quote, they don't make them like they used to, as we point to classics that have either aged beautifully or soured into a virtual train wreck. First, I've got to say that the article is 1000% right when it says the only reason this game is so successful is because gamers are hungry for nostalgic experiences. Hello fellow travelers and welcome to the Hard Light Network. Alrighty guys, now that the honeymoon phase is over for the release of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remaster, I think it's about time that I give my take on this topic. If you guys have watched my channel for any period of time, you know that I am not the biggest fan of Todd Howard or Bethesda. However, that hasn't always been the case. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion was actually one of my very favorite games growing up, and I spent hundreds of hours enjoying the scenic locales of Cyrodiil, charging through the fiery gates of the Deadlands, and also having my certified schizo moment in the Shivering Isles. Oblivion was one of the few titles that I managed to unlock 100% of the achievements for, and some of my strongest friendships were spent bonding over the lore of the game. But today we are going to take off our fanboy hats because instead of glazing up this remaster, we're here to do some good old-fashioned hating. But before we get into today's video guys, do me a solid and hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content that I've got coming up for you guys in the future, and also leave a comment with your thoughts down below. If you want to support this channel further, there are super thanks and memberships options down below. Be sure to join the channel today for access to exclusive content and perks that you can't get anywhere else. But without any further ado, let's get into today's article. Today's reading comes to us from thegamer.com and is entitled Oblivion Remastered's success is a sad sign of where video games are right now. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered is officially one of the biggest games of the year. In the first month of release alone, according to Circana, it massively outsold the original game compared to its first 15 months on the market across Xbox 360 and PC. It was not just the best-selling game in the US for April in terms of dollar sales, but the third best-selling title of 2025 so far, and that's on top of also being available on Game Pass. Folks love Oblivion. Players had also been waiting years for it, with rumors and speculation about the remaster running so rampant that its existence essentially became an open secret. Which it kind of was, thanks to the FTC leak. We all knew it would be arriving sooner or later, and when it did, it would take over the world. Oblivion did just that, and it's quite astounding to see it effortlessly outperform new releases despite very little changing about the experience beyond the impressive Unreal Engine 5 visuals. Even so, it's still buggy, charming, and plays like the 2006 original in all the ways we know and love. Its success also represents where the industry is right now, and how major developers and publishers have reached a plateau of creativity where all they can do is rely on the past. Anyone even slightly immersed in the modern world of video games will know how long the big hitters take and cost to make. The Elder Scrolls VI was first announced way back in 2018, and is likely still several years away from release. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, was already 4 years deep into development when Naughty Dog first showed it off to the world. And it's not difficult to conjure up countless similar examples like this. We have reached a point of visual photorealism and mechanical complexity, not to mention the rising expectations of players, that AAA experiences that once came out every few years are now released a couple of times a decade. And so, to fill the gaps, we look back on the not too distant past. Gamers are also nostalgic creatures, and we tend to hold our earliest gaming memories very close to our hearts. We'll convince ourselves that, quote, they don't make them like they used to, as we point to classics that have either aged beautifully or soured into a virtual train wreck. I get why we feel this way about nostalgic classics, similar to how I can still sit down and play the likes of Final Fantasy VII or Abe's Odyssey, despite being painfully aware of how far we've come since their release several decades ago. But when they make a return, whether in the form of a fanciful remake or digital releases, I can't help but celebrate and prioritize them far above newer and arguably more interesting games. Developers and publishers realized this a long time ago, alongside how much money can be made capitalizing on this nostalgia. For several generations now, we have been treated to, quote, definitive versions of recent releases or revivals of classic franchises from yesteryear packaged into fanciful collections complete with improved visuals, controls, and special features. Most of them are welcome and act as a valuable touchstone of video game preservation, like Capcom's slew of fighting collections. But others are transparent attempts to fill gaps in release schedules that wouldn't exist if we hadn't backed ourselves into an unsustainable corner in the first place. Sony's especially guilty of this with Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone, receiving upgrades which were sold to us as fully fledged releases when, in fact, they dedicated resources to existing games instead of giving developers freedom to create something new. It's a draining thing to witness. I feel like a hypocrite for discussing this because I've been excited by the concept of major remakes and remasters frequently in recent years. The Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy has only been produced because Square Enix understood the enduring love millions hold for the original, while Skyrim has been repackaged again and again and again because it offers up timeless appeal that few other games can match. When a corporation stumbles upon a big game, which people refuse to stop playing, any sense of artistic integrity is cast aside when they realize the endless profits that can be made. But what happens when this well of cheap nostalgia runs dry, and the people pulling the strings have nothing left to peddle? Oblivion Remastered deserves to exist, and I'm glad it finally got a new lease on life after all these years and was released to such critical and commercial acclaim. But the magnitude of the success it's experienced points to how few AAA alternatives there are right now, thanks to how long these games cost and take to make. The fact the biggest game of last month was a remaster of an RPG from 2 decades ago is a pretty damning indication of how much the blockbuster scene is struggling right now. Aside from live service platforms and indies way more people should be giving a chance, there is nothing else out there right now except the past being repackaged in the most transparent ways possible. I shudder to think what the industry will look like in the next several years when developers and publishers are running out of nostalgia to capitalize on and find themselves having to reconcile with the unsustainable medium they've perpetuated to the point of breaking. There will come a point where the past is nothing but an empty husk and we'll have no choice but to move forward. But by then, it might be too late. And that's going to do it for the written article today, guys, but your boy has a little bit of a rant he needs to go on. First, I've got to say that the article is 1000% right when it says the only reason this game is so successful is because gamers are hungry for nostalgic experiences. As a whole, and a standalone title, the remaster itself simply isn't that good. But before you take to the comments section to tell me about how I'm David Gator's worst nightmare and the pinnacle of anti-fans, let me just explain why. Many of the character models in the Oblivion remake have deep roots in the fertile ground of the Uncanny Valley. Uriel Septim looks like a Draugr straight out of the tombs of Skyrim. He looks so ancient in-game that if the Mythic Dawn had waited maybe another month, he probably would have died of natural causes. And while it's true that you can imagine much better looking characters in this game's character creator than you ever could in the original, they destroyed the depth of character creation by removing the gendered options. In the original game, choosing your character's race and gender was a significant choice because it affected your starting stats. There was also an added touch of realism in the original, where each race was a different size. However, in the remake, all of the races are the same height. While these might be seemingly small or aesthetic changes to the average player, they actually remove quite a bit of depth and immersion from the gameplay experience. Another critique that I've mentioned before is that all of the in-game armor models are set to the baseline male body type. This leads to all of the armor options for female characters looking bulky and unnatural. I also want to push back on this talking point that the remaster preserves the quote buggy charm of the original. 20 years ago, RPGs of this size or scale could be forgiven for being a little buggy. but nowadays it's completely unacceptable, and I thought the point of a remaster was to fix the problems with the original title. The only reason people aren't furious with the state of this game is because it's Oblivion and they remember the original being so buggy. It's a good thing that nostalgia never misses leg day because it's doing 110% of the heavy lifting for this title. Necromancy is supposed to be illegal in Cyrodiil, but the developers of this remake simply dug it up out of the grave, slapped a fresh coat of paint on it, and sent it on its merry way. I've still got my original copy of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Game of the Year Edition for the Xbox 360, and quite honestly, I can't bring myself to justify even spending the $40 that it costs to play the remaster. If I really wanted to scratch that nostalgic itch, I could simply boot up the original game and play that with a little bit less polish. I know that my takes in this video are not going to be very popular, and trust me, I don't hate the Oblivion Remaster. But I didn't jump on the hype train when the remaster released because I'm not going to sit here and pander to you guys when I genuinely don't think that the remaster itself is any good. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I think that Oblivion deserved a full-on remake instead of a remaster. It's simply not enough for me that they pushed the game through the Unreal Engine 5 vanity filter and added a sprint button. I think if they were truly interested in doing us and this game justice, they would have remade it from the ground up to give us something new that would have also scratched that nostalgic itch. For me, as much as I loved the original game, I think that they could have done so much more with it, and the remaster simply doesn't tap into that potential. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who has watched up to this point. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content that I've got coming up for you guys in the future. Also, don't forget to take to the comment section down below to tell me about how wrong I am for hating on the Oblivion Remaster. Like I said, I just thought it was my turn to give my 2 cents on this title now that the newness has worn off a little bit. But if you guys are genuinely enjoying the remaster and having a good time, I don't want to stand in the way of that, and I think you guys should continue to enjoy it. I think the best thing about the remake is that it's breathed new life into the online communities surrounding the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, particularly the lore channels all over YouTube. There are some truly amazing channels on this platform whose entire catalog revolves around the Elder Scrolls 4 gameplay and lore, and for those channels alone, I couldn't be any happier that this remake was released, as it has probably breathed new life into their channels. But with that being said, I've got to get back to it, guys, so as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.